Welcome to the latest edition of Founders Tales. I'm delighted to be joined today by Mariana Vinagre, who is the co-founder of NautIQ Technologies. Mariana, welcome to Founders Tales. Do you want to give everybody a quick intro to yourself and your business?
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. I really appreciate it. I'm Mariana. I'm the co-founder of NautIQ Technologies. And a little bit about me and the company. I am a third-time founder, also a children's book author. I've been doing the entrepreneurship journey for about 13 years now. NautIQ is my third company, which I'm very happy to co-found with my husband, who is the brilliant visionary into creating this company, understanding the market segment. And I tell him I'm just here to kind of make it work, put it pretty, and wrap it in a bow, and then give it to him so he can run with it and continue to developing the vision and growing the vision. So I'm the COO. I do all the operational side, the development, all the back end of the company. And previous to that, I had also found a multicultural lemonade with my daughter. So I was in the CPG space for 5 years. She still have the company, so we took a little bit of a break. Now I'm focused on NautIQ. And the idea behind that company too was to create something that was meaningful for me as an entrepreneur, and as an immigrant, as a Latina immigrant especially. I think we have such a deep social responsibility as we kind of break those glass ceilings, as we move forward, as we create and develop those visions. I feel deeply that the social responsibility component is really important and needs to be present in our companies, at least in my companies. So with Little Maven Lemonade, which is my previous company, there was always this idea of, with the mission that to celebrate our immigrant heritage and celebrate immigrants' communities through food, through drinks, because the biggest thing that I was able to identify is that even though you might not like or have, wherever you fall into the political spectrum, right? You're still eating different foods or some type of ethnic foods. You're still sharing and breaking bread with people over different types of foods. And that's what I wanted to create too. I want to expand the table instead of building walls. And let's talk about this. Let's have a real conversation, a real meaningful conversations and connections with people over a glass of lemonade, which is the most basic thing, right, that you can have in American culture. You have lemonade stands, you have things like that. And even discovering that the lemonade stands started through the immigrants in the Ellis Island port, where the hawkers would sell lemonade. There was no bottled waters to sell, right? So they would make lemonade in literally dirty buckets mixed with molasses, and they would stack up the crates and create a little stand, and that's how they would sell lemonades to the immigrants coming off the boat of Ellis Island. And that's how that culture really started in the US. And if you think about it, when you come across a lemonade stand, it's really literally kids just welcoming anybody in the neighborhood to kind of share their lemonade, right? So those things became a very important component for me. Previous to that, I was one of the pioneers on launching interactive magazines in the luxury sector in 2014. So we were a little bit early to market. And previous to that was when I released my first children's book here in the US and in Brazil. So all that led me, I backtracked it. So all that led me and made me a very strong entrepreneur and operator to now build NautIQ, which is definitely my biggest project to date, where we are developing automation for the boat maintenance industry. And that is still in its early stages, but our hope is that we're gonna have this done pretty soon, and then we can share more of what the technology truly is and how we are building it.
Fantastic. And with NautIQ, what was the problem that first sparked the idea for the business then?
So my husband actually has a company doing car detailing, and then he started that during COVID. And throughout the business, he had people coming up to him and say, if he also did boats. And he was like, well, I never done a boat, but I can learn. And then he started doing it. And we are also sailors. So he does our boats. And he always say that like people love working on their boats until they actually have to do it. Right. And then one day he was working on a boat, and then he was kind of a little bit fed up. He was like, well, there has to be a better way than to do this manually. And it's very true that in this industry, people are still doing the work manually on work on the bottom of boats. Like it's 1989, so much automation has been done in several industries. So much technology has improved a lot of the labor. But in this particular niche, this particular market of the recreational boats, everything that is maintenance wise is still being done by hand. And it's a very very hard, arduous labor, really back-breaking work. And what happens with that is that, we start to identify that our bottlenecks. We experienced that last year where the marina told us that our boat was going to be in the water at a particular date, beginning of April. And it took 5 weeks for that to happen, not because they were working on our boat, because my husband did that work himself, but because the boat in front of us had people doing the work, and then that work didn't get done, and then that work took longer, and then our boat now is stuck behind it. So it creates all these bottlenecks, and the work is not consistent. So that, I think that's one of the biggest complaints too for boat owners that we identified, is that you have two people working on a boat. If you have like a 40, 50 footer, the work starts one way, ends a different way. Everybody does it differently. So it's very hard to scale and have consistency on that work if everybody does it differently.
Yeah, makes sense. And as you mentioned, you've been an entrepreneur for 13 years now. So what do you think is one thing that stands out that you thought it would be like building out startups that turned out to be completely false?
Ooh, where do I even start with that? The one thing that I thought I knew about startups that was completely false, I think the biggest one, it has to be that your ideas are always great, and that you have to work on your idea. And what I mean by that is that you start with your idea, and as you go through the process of understanding your customers, understanding your market, understanding where you stand, and where the market stands, your idea might only be the foundation of what you actually end up building, because it's going to change. So our assumptions are most likely going to be challenged by actual data. So, and what I saw, I always had this in mind, and I also have an MBA in entrepreneurship, so we kind of got trained to kind of see things a little bit differently. But what I've seen from other founders, from people that I worked with, is that people tend to marry their ideas and really be stuck with, this is my idea, this is how I'm going to build it. And then where they fail, where it proves to not be true, is that you're going to go through different iterations of your idea, and you cannot be hard and married to your initial thought process and your initial idea, because that's going to change.
Yeah, and either way, it doesn't mean it's a bad idea.
No, you have to start with the idea, right? You just cannot really be married to it in a way that doesn't allow for the flexibility of, as you validate assumptions, that things will change.
Yep. And I know you've kind of built out a founding team who really believe in the vision and the mission that you guys have for the business. So how did you go about convincing people to get involved in the project early doors?
That is, I think that's the $1 million question. I think a lot of founders struggle with that. But for me, I actually went to an event in Boston, and I was just talking about the idea. There was people there that were looking for work and looking to do meaningful work. And like, as I stepped out of the room for a minute, came back, and those people were like waiting for me in the hallway, saying like, hey, really like what you're building. How can we get involved? What can we do? And I think the biggest challenge is to convince people to work for you for free for a little while, because that is going to, if you're not coming from money, that's going to happen. And it's it's a big ask. So I think people saw the vision. We are solving a real big and real problem, where people can see that and can see the need. So they believe in the idea. They believe on how much we had already done, how I laid out how we want to do things, and they can see it, and they're like, okay, we want to be a part of it and grow this with you. So let's jump on a call. Let's start meeting up and see how we can help you build. And that's pretty much it. But with that being said, that is a challenge. For my previous company, I was not able to get that. Lots of people who wanted to work with me and want to help build the brand at a price tag. So it's very interesting to see, where people tend to kind of side. Not that my previous business was bad, but I think is also what I've been learning is that it is also dependent on an industry very much, where a hard tech innovation tend to get more eyeballs than building a CPG company. You're building food and beverage, not as much. So understanding, I think, where you fall under those categories and understanding where people are going to be most likely to work with you early on, hoping that the company grow and believing in what they're building, versus this is going to happen, this is true, and it's going to happen to every segment of every industry. That's most likely not going to happen.
Yeah. And, looking forward, once you're in a position to payroll people and hire in a more conventional manner, how would you personally look to spot startup DNA in people that you might be meeting with, interviewing, etc., to try and ensure that they join and there's longevity when they join the business, etc.?
I think it's being very clear on that vision. Like, we have very much a lot of clarity on where we're going, how long it's going to take us to get there, and being kind of realistic about that process, and how it's going to take, what it's going to take to build, what is that process is going to look like. And I can even say, like, well, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but the goal is to get here, and that's why we need the team to join, right? So I think having that clarity and structuring early on, what do you want that company to look like and what you want that team to look like. So people at this early stage, they join the company, I think, for two reasons. They want to work with you personally, and they want to work on the project. But if any of those two are kind of off, then that DNA is kind of broken, right? Or it's not complete. So understanding that, like, people want to work on the project, but if the founders are people they ended up not trusting or not liking, that's not going to work. So for me, I sat with the team and I was like, no, I want to start creating really the vision, the mission, and the work life of the company. What does that look like? Here is some parameters that I'm setting, and I want to hear from you guys if you agree with this. Is there anything that we need to add? What are they? Today is going to be like, what are our boundaries? What are the rules for this? Or what's the culture of the organization going to be like? And I want your input, because at the end of the day, it's affecting you more than it's affecting me. And in order for me to continue to have your buy-in and want you to continue to work with the company, right? We need to do this together. It needs to be a place that you are hopeful that it's going to come through, and that you're still excited to work with us every single day. So that, I think, is one component that most people wait until later to build, where I want to build very early on and set that standard very early on with the team, to be like, this is what the company core values are. This is who we are as a company, as a team, and this is what we are building. And if things are out of place, then it's not going to work, right? So I think that's pretty much like how I can, and I think once you have that done and you have that clear, then you can start spotting other people. So then I know that my next hire really will need to fit into that culture. Otherwise, it's not going to work. It's not going to be a good fit. And I think that's hard early on. I think that's where most people fail into their hiring process, or the hire fast, fire faster comes into play because I already set the standard of the culture of the company. Now I need the team that is going to continue to develop that and embrace that culture and validate that. So I think it's spotting it, like somebody has to like be very, very early on. You can spot somebody who embodies that culture, and somebody, because it's going to come through in conversation. It's going to come in informal conversations, what they're looking for and what kind of companies they want to work for. And if they say, for me, for example, if they say, well, I want to work for a company where I can stay for a couple of years, become part of the founding team, and then I can go and build my own company. Probably not the right fit for me, because they're looking to just learn, and then they're going to be moving on to their company. I'm building robotics, not software. So just the process of even developing the robot, deploying it, we're talking 2 years right then and there, right? So like then what, you're gonna build this and then you're gonna leave, and so those come up in conversation. If you are clear on what the mission of the company is and what kind of culture you're setting up, then it becomes easier to spot.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you're looking at that culture build as a collective responsibility, and wanting people to feel like they've got that ownership, and because the end result of that is, or should be, that people ultimately are buying into it more and feeling part of the build, integral part of the build, basically. So yeah, fantastic. And then from a location perspective, you guys based down in Providence, but I know you do tap into the Boston startup ecosystem truly. So have there been any kind of local events, meetups, group affiliations, whatever it might be, that have really been beneficial in helping you guys get things off the ground?
Oh, there's been quite a few. Like I met my team. I was going through like a Techstar event, and then that event I met somebody else from Silicon Valley Bank, who then invited me to this other event, and then I was there, and then I met the team, and then it just keep going to a lot of the meetups that happen there, and it's open to the public. One new group that has been like extremely valuable for us is called Sbur, and they are very small, tight, like insider network per se, but they do have their platform. People can look them up online and get their app, and then you get invited, like the membership base, you get invited to those events, and they are called the inner circle. So they're very small events with people who are highly active in the Boston ecosystem, who have this interest of really creating a more connected space for entrepreneurs and for founders in the Boston area. So we were there yesterday, and at every event you get out of there with some other introduction, somebody like, hey, tell me what you're doing more and how can I support you. So I think those communities, that community has been incredible for us, and more on that later on. Stay tuned. We're having conversations of kind of moving starting some of that in Providence, but can talk much about that. Yeah. So we want to kind of like really
watch this space.
Exactly. Like we want to also get Rhode Island into their own scene. And I think Rhode Island is starting to kind of really push for that separation from not being in the shadows of Boston and Massachusetts, to start to kind of become their own like startup hub per se, especially with the ocean technology and life science. So Rhode Island is one of the 7 or 11, I can't remember the number, ocean technology hubs in the country, and is Rhode Island and south of Mass. And they are really banking on that to kind of build this stronger ecosystem of entrepreneurs and startups here, and starting to distance themselves from Boston. So we see that complementary benefit to having both networks, while still kind of supporting Rhode Island to become its own hub per se for entrepreneurship, but also tapping into all the knowledge, all the support, and everything that Boston has to offer, because we can't ignore that. But I think just regular simple events like meetup events with the entrepreneurial ecosystem has been incredibly valuable to us. And then people have to kind of see what their goals are and then start to filter through the noise, right? Not every event is going to be a great event. Not every community is going to be your community, and then kind of go from person to person. But definitely there are a lot out there in the Boston area that is very well comparable to San Francisco and New York. That Boston is not far behind those places at all. I think it's just equally as developed, for sure.
Yeah, that's great to hear regarding Rhode Island. There's a significant amount of fantastic ocean tech, maritime tech startup activity going on at the moment down there. So yeah, watch this space, as you said. So Mariana, moving on to some reflections maybe and advice for others. So first question on that front, if you could send a message to yourself back on your day one of your first startup, what would that message be?
Don't cry. No, just kidding. There's going to be a lot of crying, a lot of tears. That is just, I think, part of it. I was even joking with my husband this morning. I'm like, no, the main difference between a small business and a startup is that a startup is going to kill you a lot faster. Gosh, is day one is learn quicker and bounce back quicker. A failure is not a reflection on you. Failure is just an opportunity for you to do better next time. It's learning lessons. So I think that initially those failures were very impactful for me, and not having that guidance, where I put so much pressure on myself. And now I look back and it's like, those were part of the process. They were not failures. They were just validations and things that needed reiterations, and it needed to be moving faster. And I kind of sat there, dwelling on it. So that would have been my advice to myself, is like, they're building blocks. They are not death sentences.
Yeah.
Like, move faster and understand reiterate instead of giving up.
Yeah. And as a founder, is there anything else in terms of advice you've received from others that stood you in good stead, that kind of stands out?
Yes, and based on my experience and other advices, business is business, friendship is friendship. That is one. And understand that everything, you have to protect yourself and you have to protect your business, and people will and help you, but make sure that you are protected, because sometimes you have a bad experience with somebody, and if people could, they would. That's a very, very true thing. And what you want to make sure is that if people could, they will not, because you have to trust people as you build relationships, but you also have to understand that business is business, friendship is friendship, and you need to be on that lookout all the time.
Yeah, fantastic. And then one final question, apart from sometimes having a good old cry, how do you personally stay sane and motivated when it comes to dealing with the inevitable highs and lows of building a startup?
I think it's important to take breaks. Like, I have to take breaks sometimes and not do anything. One of the things that we've been doing here this time around is, like, on Sundays, we don't do any work. Sundays is family time. We have 2 kids. We have a life with other business and family that has to become a priority too. That is our priority. So taking those necessary breaks and talking to other people too. Sometimes I notice that I tend to, when I'm my head down at work, I tend to kind of lose track of time, and then next thing you know, I'm a complete hermit, and then the sun is rising. I just look up and I'm like, I need to get out of the house. I need to just see people. I need to just not be here for the next 3 hours. I don't care if it's just to do laundry. I just need to be out of here and breathe. So I don't believe in balance. I think that was, back to that initial question, like the biggest lie. I should have mentioned it. I think the biggest lie that I was told is that you need to find a balance. That is no balance when you're building a startup. That is what I believe that has to happen, is integration. How do you integrate your personal life, your life, your business together, and then you work around that, but understanding that something's always gonna fall. You're not gonna have it all. You can have it all, just not at the same time. Something is gonna fall. So if we are hard into development of the startup, the family is gonna suffer. If we are doing the family time, you're not working on the business. And how do you integrate all those things and life happening, right? It's what you have to figure out, not try to find some type of fallacy balance like that does not exist.
Yeah, fantastic. Some good honest words to finish up on. So thank you very much, Mariana. Really enjoyed speaking to yourself today. Best of luck to yourself, NautIQ, moving forward. Looking forward to seeing you guys continue to build and go from strength to strength.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. I really appreciate it, and hope to speak again soon.
Yeah, pleasure. All right, thanks very much.